Welcome back. This is our third week of looking at the book of Daniel, and what we've been talking about are the resolves that Daniel makes. Daniel, this brilliant, gifted, wise, good-looking person, finds himself in captivity of Babylon, really the most trying situation of his life. And what we see Daniel doing is making these resolves. In the faithfulness of God, he's choosing to resolve. And this week, the resolve that we're looking at is Daniel's resolve to be humble. Wow, this might be the most difficult one for an independent, prideful, talented, just people, really, in generation that we are. But the resolve, the call to be humble is just as important and just as powerful for us as it was for Daniel. Daniel had everything going for him. He had favor on his life. And in the middle of the trying time, he was committed. He was resolved again and again to be humble. And, we see that specifically. I'm going to look at two places. In Daniel chapter 2, verse 30, we see that the King Nebuchadnezzar, had a very profound dream. And he was looking for someone to tell him what it meant. And he had asked his council and his enchanters and all the dream interpreters around him, and no one knew what it meant. And finally, he remembered Daniel. And Daniel was brought before him, and Daniel is given an opportunity to interpret the dream. Now, can you imagine that? Daniel standing before the king. He is thought to be the man. I mean, he is the guy that has the answer. He's about to wow the king with this interpretation. And so the king asks him for the interpretation. And you know what Daniel says? He says, I can't do it. There's no way that any person could interpret your dream, O King Nebuchadnezzar. But I know the God who can. God can interpret your dream. I can't do it, but God can do it. And we see this moment capturing the humility that Daniel was resolved in. Daniel wasn't about trying to find his way out of the captivity primarily. He wasn't about trying to make a name for himself or prove how strong, smart, powerful he was. Daniel had resolved to be humble and to live a life that exalted not himself, but exalted the Lord. And in these trying times, we have that exact opportunity. It's maybe not a king and a dream interpretation, but it is an opportunity again and again where we're standing before others and we have an opportunity to prove our strategy, to prove the answers that we have or the knowledge that we know or how okay or great we are or what our plan or strategy is to make it through these trying times. And honestly, the truth is, nobody has an answer for these hardships. The point of the hardship isn't to prove who was really wise with their money or who was really smart or who had the most strategic answer. No, these times exist to glorify the God who is faithful. And our calling is to be a people not that have all the answers or who are strong and mighty in these times. Our calling as the people of God is to resolve to be humble, just like Daniel did. And you know what? The humility isn't just about being humble before others. It's also a humility before God. We see in Daniel chapter 10, the prayers of Daniel are answered. An angel comes to visit Daniel, and what the angel says is he says, fear not, Daniel, in Daniel chapter 10, he says, fear not, from the first day that you set your heart to understand and humbled yourself before your God, your words have been heard. And we get this answer from heaven. Not a thought or something Daniel's imagining, but a real answer from the angel in heaven who speaks to Daniel and he says, Daniel, I know you've been waiting for an answer. I want you to know that first time, that first moment when you humbled yourself, when you sought to understand what God thought, from that instant, your prayers were echoing in heaven. And I know that if you're watching this, you know we need to be praying. You know this is a time we have to call out for God to move. The key here, though, is the resolve in our heart to be humble before our God. To resolve that God is God and we are not. And in these trying times, I just would invite you, and I would just really command myself to live as one who is resolved to be humble, to set my heart again in these days that God is God and I am not. And we need God. We desperately need God in these days. Let's resolve to be a humble people. I'm with you.